Constantine, a Hellblazer podcast.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we're doing another episode of Hell Talk. Now that the end of the Jamie Delano run has been reached, it's the first main run of that. And today, of course, as always, I have my co-host Hoku. How you doing, Hoku?
Hi, everybody. I'm doing good. Just enjoying getting my head around all the crazy shit that's happened in these past few issues.
Yeah, maybe you can explain to me what happened, because I'm still a little bit fuzzy on exactly what was going on. But you know, that's Jamie
I think,
Delano.
yeah, he really, like you've said, he puts forth really great ideas, but doesn't quite give you enough to understand them completely.
Yeah, I think last episode when I said that, it was like probably the most insightful thing I've ever said about Jamie Delano's writing. Like, because after I said it, I was like, oh yeah, like that is it. Like he doesn't quite. He's got a lot of cool ideas, but it doesn't. I can never quite like grab it. Like I can never get my head around it. So, so yeah, we for this episode we read issues, or we listened to issues 32 through 40, and which is the last 8 issues of the run. And we got a lot of little story arcs in this one. It's not one solid one, like you were saying before we were recording. So just generally, what did you think of this little run here?
I really enjoyed the little bites that he
Yeah.
kept this up to. I think it overall makes you feel like you're getting more out of fewer issues because this was what, only like 8 issues or
8
so.
issues. Yeah.
And isn't that how long Fear Machine was?
Fear Machine's 9.
9. So like I feel like I got more out of these 8 issues than the entirety of Fear Machine, just from the different characters that we met, the different plot points that got, finished and cleaned up nicely. Like a few little stray tags here and there, which is always great because that means hopefully they'll use it again or do something with them.
Right.
But overall, I really enjoyed this whole set of issues as like you wouldn't even need to technically call it a chunk of like the full story because there's like almost 4 different stories within these issues. So I really enjoyed that we got a lot more movement from the story than being bogged down by a single storyline with like little threads here, the way some of the other ones have been. So I don't know if that was an artistic choice for them to say, hey, can you just like shorten it to like 1 or 2 issues per idea, or if he just naturally did this after himself doing like all that with Fear Machine and Family Man and being like, you know what, I could do some short stories now.
Yeah, I don't know how he wrote this one, or like these stories. I wonder if he knew like I'm ending, like my run is going to end at 40. So like I want to get this like Magus storyline wrapped in there, but also I want to tell these other little side stories. And one of them is actually a fill-in issue. Issue 32, the first one we're going to talk about is the dog issue, the infamous
Red
dog
the
issue.
dog.
Yeah, and so like that one's written. It says Jamie Delano on the cover, I think, or something. But then on the inside it says Doug Foreman or Dick Foreman, I think. I can't remember what his name is, but the guy who fills in on like all Swamp Thing and Hellblazer issues whenever they need like a little extra run or a little extra issue in between.
I wonder if it's like they give him an idea of like, hey, so I have this idea for a story, I just don't have time to write it. Can you kind of fiddle with it? And then he pops these gems out of
Yeah,
his just weird individual stories that they're like, I'm thinking something about a possessed dog, just run with it. And he's just like, oh yeah, I got that.
that makes sense because I think they do like credit him as like a writer on it as well, like Jamie. So I'm like, okay, maybe like you said, it was like plotted, and then Dick just was like, okay, I'll do all the words and like some of the other story beats or something. But either way, I like this one a lot. I think this one's like a fun
Yeah.
one, and I think John is very like funny in this one. I do think the premise is a little silly, like specifically how he defeats the dog. And
Oh
like
yeah, just
yeah, how
Pepper, or what was it?
well, there was Pepper, but then also he happened to see dogs playing in the park earlier that morning or whatever, and saw how like the alpha would like not attack a dog if he laid down on his belly. So he was like, all I got to do is lay down on my belly. And I'm like, your
Only he
instincts will
thought of
kick
it
in.
sooner, and he wouldn't have had to go through all that running and hiding and
I know. Well,
almost dying.
then we wouldn't have an issue, you know? So,
That's true.
but yeah, I like the way like he does have to run and he's trying to get out of the situation. And it makes sense because it's like, I mean, your first thought when a giant killer dog is chasing you is not like, I'm going to roll over on my tummy or on my back and reveal my stomach so that the instincts will kick in and he won't kill me. And so, that is like the only little silly thing, but I let it go. It is comics at some point, you know, and you go like, all right, well, I've read crazier stuff or like sillier stuff than that for endings to things. So, and it is a fill-in issue. So I always give those like a little, like a pass on certain things. Cause you're like, someone's got to come in and try to like fill in an issue in the middle of this run. And, you know, of course it's got to fill in, but it can't really tie into anything. And cause who knows what the writer wants to do after that. And then it's just, you know, you're trying to craft a story in one issue. That's pretty hard, but I think it was pretty successful with this one.
I agree. I think that it fits fine. It has, you know, beginning, middle, and end. It's both fits in with the storyline, but also if you take it out, it doesn't really affect anything around it. So,
although they do mention dogs, like there's one.
Oh, that's right. The joke later where he's like, "I'm so sick and tired of dogs."
Yeah, I love that callback because if you're gonna have,
funny.
you know, it's nice that Jamie Delano would call back to a fill-in issue, right? But
that is pretty funny. Maybe he just really liked the way that story came out and was like, you know what, I'm gonna put a little in there for him.
Now it's canon because I mentioned it. But that's one of those things I never think about it because, you know, every run of American comics has like fill-ins, and sometimes those writers, they try to go big. They try to make their stamp on that character. And a lot of the times that shit just gets forgotten in the past because no one ever mentions it again. So like technically it is canon because it's in the run or whatever, but if no one ever mentions it again, then it's not really, you know, like technically it is,
That's
but
true.
No one's going to count it as canon. They're going to be like, oh, that was this one fill-in writer, this one issue that no one ever brings up. So it's not really canon. But because Jamie Delano calls back to it, now it's canon. He definitely fought that dog. And I appreciate that. I kind of wanted like a writer later on to pick the story back up because, you know, at the end there's like the rat that's possessed. So, or they insinuate that the rat is possessed. So it's like, someone could have picked up a storyline where he's got to fight a giant rat or whatever, or like figure that out, or there's something going on with these rats, and you know, spin off of that.
Rat becomes king rat and gets a bunch of rats like what's that play or that ballet Nutcracker?
The Nutcracker,
you know, King Rat with all his.
Well,
rats.
that's basically what this is. The dog, right? He becomes king dog and then gets all the dogs.
Yeah. But, you know, it's funny. It actually reminded me of one of Clive Barker's stories from Book of Bloods, where same kind of idea is that, although I don't think necessarily that the character uses magic or anything, but just that there's this one story he has about a police detective who has to go to this like boys reform school to be a teacher, and one of the kids has disappeared and they don't know what happened to him. And I'll spoil it a little bit just because I won't give away the full ending, but there's also this like giant pig out back in a sty that the kids are supposed to take care of these farm animals as part of their rehabilitation. One of the kids like killed himself and then let the pig eat him so that he could then put his spirit in the pig. So really messed up story. But that was, to me, it struck a similar chord of just the idea of like human possessing an animal.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've grown to not trust anybody who owns a lot of pigs because I know that they could just kill someone and throw them in the pen and the pigs will eat them. So, you know, if you're looking for bodies and someone has a pig farm, I think you know where you'll find them. So
also dogs,
yes.
all a Watchmen. So
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I think I've seen a lot more media with pigs doing it than dogs. Although I'm sure, train a dog to eat them. But yeah, so I thought that issue was pretty fun. And then the next issue is the one I'm like, what? Like out of nowhere, it's the one that's like Sundays are different. And it's just like,
Yeah,
John has
that
a nice
was
Sunday.
trippy.
Yeah.
Or does he?
Oh yeah, or does he? Who knows?
Is this normal? Is this a normal Sunday for him where the world just goes topsy-turvy and he jumps into a slightly different dimension and then just readjusts himself? Because he does that every Sunday, just jumps into a new dimension.
Well,
That was such a trippy thing. I could never figure out if it meant to be like this is normal for him, or it's like Sunday, I can't trust what happens, meaning something weird just happens every Sunday. Or any day he tries to be all, I'm gonna like move on, I'm gonna be normal, I'm gonna be a nice guy, and for some reason that upsets the universe and
like the universe won't let him be a nice guy. He's got to be a dick.
Exactly.
Because that is how God or whoever wants him to be. That's a funny idea. For me, the whole second half of this issue is a dream, like a fever dream, because he ate bad food or whatever, and he had food poisoning. And I just imagined him sitting on the toilet, passed out, with his face against the graffiti that he like started messing with the letters and stuff. So I just imagine him just like pass out in there, just having this crazy dream because he ate the bad food. But yeah, like it's such a weird one.
I hope so.
Yeah, right. I had no idea
because my idea is like way worse.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like sometimes he just goes to another dimension. But the reason I don't think it's that is because he never does it again or anything, right? So it's just kind of like it's weird because it's written by Jamie Delano, but it feels like a fill-in issue because it's never referenced again, and it's just kind of a one-off. And he doesn't have many of those, even like the ones you think are like was issue 23, the one where he like hangs out with his friend that sets up the whole
dead guy.
Yeah.
That one.
No, not the dead guy one. The one it's the literary guy. I can't remember his name. Jehoshaphat.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Where like that could have been a one-off, but then he like continues it into the Family Man story arc. So it's like, okay, like you kind of needed that for setup, but there's no reason to have it.
Right. There's nothing that happens afterwards to say whether he like either got back to our universe or, like you said, if it was just a fever dream brought on by stomach pains and food poisoning.
Yeah.
He didn't like wake up in the stall the next day or something. It just like the story continued after that plus the like you said, the nod at the end of the issue where he kind of almost looks at the camera, you said?
Yeah, he like winks at us as the
winks. So then even more so, it's like, wait, so he's breaking the fourth wall right there. Is that also part of his dream? Or is that, again, just a normal Sunday thing where the universe just spits him out somewhere weird and he's just like, well, I guess I'll get back to reality when I get back to reality.
I don't know. It's weird enough, and it never happens any other time in the series, even in Jamie Delano's run. So I'm like, I don't know. Maybe Jamie just wanted to tell this weird one-off story and was like, I'll put it here. And then because he, if he knows he's wrapping it up, and he's only got 8 issues, it's like, okay, well, I'll use these 2. We got the dog story, then we got my one weird story, then we, get into the meat and potatoes, which I thought is interesting. You have the next issue, I can't remember the Boogeyman is the name of that one. And it's like John finding Marge and Mercury again from the Fear Machine story. And immediately in my head, I was like, oh, I know Hoku doesn't like the Fear Machine story arc, so I wonder if she's going to like them coming back or like fearing it. Like, oh my God, is this going to be another Fear Machine? Like,
I liked them as characters. It was the story that they were put in that was not my favorite, but I enjoyed them as characters and I hoped I would see them in. Kind of like how Zed came back in that one as well from previous ones. I was like, oh, cool. I hope that means that they'll also continue to come back because I like seeing them continue to use characters they have previously, especially if they're still alive,
Right.
Like, it's nice to know that there's some people who don't die after meeting John for the first time. Or,
some people
having met him in, like it happens a lot. Not to mention also people who like they bring in and it's like, oh, we've been super long friends for a long time, and you're like, oh shit, they're meeting John again, which means they're probably gonna die. So I had that feeling of, oh, they're back. Oh, does that mean they're gonna die because they're meeting up with him again?
Right, and this one, is a kind of a hard issue to read because John is such a sleazebag in it. Like, he comes to them, he finds them like where they're at with their camper, and then he comes to them and he just wants to fuck Marge, but like he's got to like go around her like defenses, so he's got to like manipulate her, and
Yeah.
it's like I know it's hard because he's like the hero, right? He's like the main character of the story, but like you don't like him as the reader. At least I don't in this, especially in this issue. I feel like he does get better depending on who's writing him sometimes, but Jamie Delano really likes to keep him in the muck, you know?
Anti-hero, I think, would be a better way to describe him, because anti-heroes are allowed to do bad things sometimes.
Yeah, he's
as
definitely
long
an
as they're-
anti-hero. Just sometimes
Yeah.
he goes in the more like even if he's an anti-hero, generally he's not like a horrible person that's manipulating women or making them like, yeah, he's like making her feel bad in order to like get what he wants. It's very like bad. And also you hear like Mercury's being affected by it. She's sitting outside feeling all of this manipulation that he's doing and like what her sister's feeling about it. So she has to live it too because she's psychic. So
Yeah, so he's hurting both of them just
Yeah.
because he wants to feel better.
yeah, and it's like it's a weird issue for like the character. What do you think about that?
It was icky for sure. I didn't particularly like John in that issue. Wanted to slap him quite a few times, actually.
Right? Yeah, you want
Could've.
Marge to hit him or something.
Leave them alone, you asshole. Haven't they been through enough?
Right? Yeah, like
Dare you just come in to like disrupt their lives just because you're feeling sorry for yourself again?
yeah, it's one of those things. It's I don't know. It's one of the worst issues for John, I think, as a character. I'm sure. Like, I mean, there's 300 issues of this run. I'm sure, or of the series. I'm sure he gets even lower than that. But generally, he doesn't treat women badly or other people usually too bad. Other than
not on purpose.
Not on purpose.
Usually not on purpose. This was one of those times where he chose to kind of be a smarmy asshole and play on her, her heartstrings and get from her what he wanted without any regard for how he might be hurting her.
Yeah.
Or either of them.
Yeah,
really.
Mercury either. Yeah.
So I didn't mind so much when the next morning in the next issue when Mercury kind of just messed with his mind afterwards. I was like, you kind of deserve that.
Yeah,
it's
you're an
harsh,
asshole.
But you were kind of a dick that night, and whether you meant it or not, we kind of get the feeling you did because you were still semi sober enough to know what you were doing was wrong, and in his head, at least we got those thoughts of like, I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway, kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So when she's just like, hey, so I'm gonna kind of just throw your death at you, I was kind of like, you kind of deserve that a little bit. I don't think he'll die. Obviously, he can't die because this is his series. Not yet, anyway. I don't know. Maybe he dies at some point.
I'm not going to spoil issue 300 for you.
I don't know. But at least at this point, I was like, I know there's issues after this. So you can't die here. So this is just going to be sort of hopefully a wake-up call for you to confront your potential death and just, know that you kind of deserve it in this moment.
Right. Yeah, and I really like that issue too, where Mercury gets him back for the night before. And it's interesting because we have this old man, John, right? And then we see this post-apocalyptic future. And it seems like this is actually the real future that John is looking at. Because later on in the last two issues, they show what the like alternate dimension Magus, the Golden Boy Magus, lived through. And he didn't have that post-apocalyptic future the same way. Like, he didn't get killed by sharks. Everything was all good. So it's like, oh, this might have been like the real future for John that she showed him because she's so like magical or whatever. She has like that. She got the shinin, we'll call it. So
yeah, almost like she was able to take his consciousness and just literally throw it into the future where she knew at some point, it ends for him. So almost like time travel.
And this issue is it's really low key, sets up all the stuff that happens in those last two issues with the Golden Boy Magus because you see John as an old man in this and he's alone. Everybody's dead. The world is dying and he can't do anything about it. He's like used all of his friends until there's none of them left, and he can't even get out of, you know, the world being ending, because it's the world being ended. So he just, you know, he's gonna get either killed by dogs or killed by sharks. He's got to choose. So and that's like a good setup for like the last two issues, where it's like we get to see the Golden Boy as a old man, like the Golden Magus, and it's like, oh, he's got all his friends with him and they all love him, and I think he's had kids with all the women or something too, or at least Mercury, I think.
It sounded like he had kids with Mercury's daughter, which is really creepy, but very culty. So I was kind of figuring that's what was going on there. It sounds like he created a cult of all his closest friends, and they're living in some kind of convent paradise,
Yes.
even though the world has kind of experienced what it did in the other vision,
Yeah.
sea levels rising and whatnot. But he managed to keep his friends safe. They fully believe in him, as you do with a cult leader. So yeah, he's probably had his way with quite a few.
I mean, as
I don't
all
think
the cult
Mercury,
leaders,
though. Mercury had her husband or whatever, but it
That's
was
true.
her daughter
yes,
that they said that they inferred that was John's kids, and that I was just like,
well, you know, like
Yeah,
all
apparently
cult leaders, you got to sleep with everybody's wife. I think that's part of
he's the golden child, but apparently he still has no scruples about, you know, sleeping around.
Hey, if they're adults and they can make their own choices, sure, why not?
But that's practically being like, Grandpa John, no, thank you.
I bet he tastes like cigarettes. Yeah.
No,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah. No, I get it. You know, I would be down for any John of any time, but you know, that's just me. So, but yeah, and then so like that was a fun issue where it like you don't know it, but it sets up like the juxtaposition for those last two issues, which I like. After reading the last two issues, you think back, oh yeah, he was old in that other one a couple issues back, and so at the time I'm like, oh, this is an interesting issue, but it actually does a lot of work for the future issues, so I like that one. And then we get a creepy look at little creepy John as a boy in the Dead Boy's Heart issue, which that's the one I remember the most from this run. Like usually when I would think back on this whole run, like all of Jamie Delano's issues, it would be like the first issues where I'd be like, oh, those were fucked up. And then for some reason this would stick in my head, where it's like John's a weird, creepy kid, and it's the 60s, and he's you know, going around trying to be cool and hang out with the older boys, and he finds a rock, and he's just like, it's a heart. And I think it's because being a young boy at one time, used to do this shit all the time, where I would just like, you pick up a rock, you're like, it's an arrowhead, and it's not at all, but like your little kid mind projects, you know, some cool thing on it.
I was actually wondering if you were going to say some sort of like connection to your childhood. That would be why it stands out so much to you.
Yeah, I mean,
did you collect rocks and call them Dead Boy Hearts? Did you?
No, and I didn't kill bugs with them either. Thank you, Hoku. I'm not a creepy little kid.
In your bug gladiator. You know, I actually used to at the beach get hermit crab or little hermit crabs, little sand crabs, and put them all in my own version of a gladiator ring and make them and put a new shell in there so that they would fight each other for the new shell.
Kill each other for me. That's what you used to say.
No, it's just them displacing each other for who gets the best shell.
Oh, okay. They don't tear each other apart. Okay, that's good.
No. It's just one of them, like, I think pokes at the other one till it leaves the shell, and then he jumps in.
Yeah.
They're still alive. I mean, if you want to be cruel, you can take away the extra shell, so then there's one of them running out without a shell, and then it's naked and easy to eat, but, you know, for some predator to get. But that would only be if you were cruel. I would always make sure there was enough shells to go around.
Yeah,
so I always threw in, like, a new shell, so they jump around and be like, oh, new shell, awesome. But yes, that part, not so much the killing bugs part, but yeah, definitely that sort of, like, that feeling of being a kid and kind of like, I have the power to make them do what I want with little creatures and stuff, so...
Yeah, I was
also a weird child.
I also like the idea of, like, you know, he's trying to impress the older kids, so he goes to get the nudie magazine. I thought that was funny because that's such a I mean, that doesn't happen anymore, right? Because porn is so prevalent on the internet or whatever, so like you don't need to walk into the woods and hope there's a stump with a Playboy that's torn apart inside of it or something, you know? So like that's what kids used to do back in the day apparently. And I never did that because
Yeah,
that
I can
was
see
even
that with the
before my
lack of
time.
technology.
Yeah, but like I mean, it's just really weird. Like to see John as like a little kid that's all fucking creepy and stuff. And then also it also sets up what happens in issues 39 and 40 where you realize, oh, this is the sickly boy, right? Like John is the sickly, not supposed to live one. And so that's why he's so creepy and weird. Uh, Even though that's not really kind of brought up in the issue itself. Like I think that's inferred by what they say in those later issues when he's born. Um,
I could see that. Like the sickliness is not just his physical self, but also in his mind. He's
yeah,
just not normal.
yeah, and also he's like thrown in to situations where people are being really creepy and weird, like adults. Like the creepiest thing in this issue to me is where he stumbles upon the couple making out and about to have sex, and then the woman is like, "No, I don't want to," but the guy's like, "Whatever, I'll do what I want." And then John comes up on them, and she's like, "Oh my god, there's a boy watching us." And then she gets up to him and goes, "You like what you see, like boy?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's so weird and creepy," especially since she was just about to get raped. Like,
Yeah, that's
like
messed up.
she does like a similar thing to John, you know, like that's such a weird thing to do. And I guess because he's only like 8 or 9 or something in that, I think. So, um, yeah, it's just like that's one of the creepiest parts of that issue. And there's a lot of creepy parts in that issue. Did you have a creepy part that you thought was extra creepy?
Well, I didn't particularly like when he had to hide, and it was like he just happened to pick the bush where the homeless man did his business in, and that was
Oh,
gross.
yeah, that's gross.
Like, that's just gross. And then he's like, "No, I have to stay here because somebody might find me, so I'm just gonna sit here and count my heartbeats."
Yeah, that is creepy. You're right about that. I also
The
thought it was
obsession with the
creepy.
heartbeats was also weird.
Yes, that's what I was. I also thought it was creepy how like that night when he's sitting in his bed, he's just like rubbing the stone on him, and it
Mm.
reminded me of like some cultures have like if you rub like an egg on you when you feel bad, the egg will like absorb the bad energy or whatever, and then like you put it under your bed and then you go to sleep, and then it will in the morning it will be spoiled or rotten or whatever, and that then you will feel good because like the egg took on the sickness.
Oh
um
my gosh, that totally just reminded me. I don't know if you ever used to see those old commercials where you put those things on your feet overnight and then in the morning they'd be black because they pulled all the toxins out of your body.
what
You remember
what
those?
nonsense is this?
I know, like the infomercials, they used to be like these are healing like pads that you put on your feet while you're sleeping, and then you take them off in the morning, and they're all black because they pulled all the toxins out of your body. And I know it was just something stupid, like it's vinegar or something that just turns black by X amount of time
Right.
after being exposed to air or whatever. But I just remember seeing those as a kid, and that definitely connects with the whole like all the toxins and horrible pains and it hurts will be pulled out of my body by this magic rock. And I just thought of that old infomercial for some reason.
That makes sense, but also like it is what a little boy thinks, right? Like a little kid, they don't know how the world works, and if you believe in this thing so much, like there's lots of stories that start like that, like even the Indian in the cupboard, or things like that, where it's like, oh, I have this idea as a child, I do it, and oh my god, magic happens. So like I get why he would do it. It's just really weird to think he got this rock, he thinks it's someone's heart, he literally thinks
Mm-hmm.
it is a boy's heart, and then he's like rubbing it on his face and stuff.
It
And
is, it
it's
is
creepy.
sort of that connection of like a weird connection of like this magic rock part found me in a way, and therefore it is my talisman, and therefore it can do all these things that I'm saying in my head like it can do. It can absorb the power of bugs. It can heal my aches and bruises and cuts. And yeah, he has a very like weird imagination
Yeah.
to go specifically in those directions. Not just for me, it would be, oh, pretty rock. I'm going to put that on my dresser because I like pretty rocks. It's no, this rock is magical and has these magic properties. And every time he, looks at the rock, or he's like, and it can also do this. And if I bleed on it, it's what was it when he like put his blood on the rock?
Uh-huh.
It's like somehow that empowered the rock even more or something like that.
Yeah, it's blood magic now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
creepy. A
it's
very
creepy.
creepy kid.
There's that's creepy, and then also like the aunt and uncle situation is creepy, where like she's tied up or something. It's some weird thing that's going on
Weird
sexually with
bondage
them.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
some bondage stuff for sure. But it does not seem legit bondage because that's consensual. So that's just,
yeah. It seems like the wife is just doing it
I
because the
think, the
husband
uncle
wants
acting out some
to.
power trips in
Yeah,
the name of like, let's do some fun. Yeah, let's do some fun stuff that I think is fun, and I don't think it's fun for her.
yeah. It's just weird. But then like I love her reaction when he's like, "Oh, you want to rub this rock, this gross fucking
Yeah.
rock on your wounds?" And she's like, "Ugh, get that fucking thing away from me." I thought that was really
Uh,
funny when I read it.
I'm actually surprised after learning, like, well, not only how much older his sister is than him, I didn't realize they had that much of an age gap,
Mhm.
but the fact that she still will go to him, because I'm sure this is only the tip of the iceberg of weird shit she has had to deal with John, but they're still on semi good terms. That would be a little hard to imagine.
Right,
That,
like
even as an adult, hearing the weird shit he gets into as an adult, but starting from being a child, the fact that she didn't like cut ties completely is good on her, I guess, for still thinking, well, he's my brother, I should keep in touch.
yeah, I guess, yeah, they never say like he ever did anything really bad around her necessarily, but it's just yeah, if there's enough weird shit going on, you would think she'd be like, I'm gonna stay away from him, but it's her
He
brother.
might turn into a serial killer. I don't know if I should like keep in close contact with him, but she still seems pretty nice,
Well, you
nice
gotta stay
enough
on
to
his
be
good
like,
side so he doesn't
oh,
murder you.
yeah. Or put a curse on you that connects to a cat, a dead cat or
Oh, good
something.
God. Yes, don't do that.
She probably didn't know about that, or she would have cut ties, I'm sure.
Oh, I would imagine. I would imagine. But so yeah, and then so that issue, I like those two issues together. Like they're like one kind of solid story that gives you a little bit about John's future and past, and then they set you up for like alternate realities and how John got there in those later two issues. But in between those two storylines, we get this I think this is a horrific storyline personally, which is why we even did these issues for Halloween a couple Halloweens ago. Um, in the main podcast, I remember reading these and these stuck with me too. Just the horrificness of the dad, like how horrible he is, and just the way it ends. I was always like, what the fuck? Like, so
I think I vaguely recall that,
yeah,
but it was
it's
still enough that I didn't recognize it when the story came up. So if I listened to it, it was probably just once when you first came out, and it didn't really I didn't really surface the memories of, oh, it's this story. Maybe it was so bad that I just like horrific that I blocked it out, and so it was like reading it all over again
well,
for
I
the
think
first time.
when me and John do it, we kind of do like a general overview of stuff, and then when I do it, I'm reading like the actual issue. So maybe it didn't sit in your mind like it would now, um, but yeah, that whole stuff with the kid Martin, and I mean, obviously the pretense for it's kind of weak, where it's just like Mercury told us to drive this way, and so we did. But like, I guess
Because
we,
she needs to help somebody.
yeah.
Somebody needs help.
And so like, I mean, I assume that's what they do anyway though, because they just drive around in a caravan. So
It's not a power that has come up before, though, of her being like, this specific person in this kind of specific place needs my help.
um
Unless maybe they use it
they did in
later.
the Fear Machine. So like in the Fear Machine room, she would feel everything that was going on, not when she was in the actual like machine, but when she was in her room, she knew that the doctor was going to die and that he like was in love with her. She knew that the guy next door was
But
going to
that's
like
like
put scissors in his eyes.
quick. That was like within a close proximity. So
Right.
unless they're saying like her powers have grown
That's what I
since
think
Fear
they're
Machine, and
saying.
now she can like reach out and find people.
I think that is what they're
Okay.
saying. I think they were
Okay.
because of Fear Machine. I think her powers got more from that, and then also she's older. It's been about what, a year or whatever. So, um, I think that she has more abilities because even like in this issue, when the dad says like to attack her, and the dog goes to attack her, but then she's like, "Hey, dog," and like the dog's like, "Arr," and like rolls over on his belly. Um, yeah,
Oh, the poor dog.
yeah, the dog. Yeah, this one is not a good one if you like animals. I will say that.
Yeah, completely different from, dog possessed by a creepy guy to dog obviously raised in an environment where it made it violent, but she sort of did like a brain click and got rid of those violent thoughts and made it nice, and then that ends up getting, that was
Yeah,
sad.
gets it killed. Yeah, I don't think she knows that though, and I don't. She wasn't there when that happened. So,
Yeah,
um,
hopefully.
but yeah, this story with Martin was always like, I always felt really creeped out by the dad, and how he like. There's that scene where he like holds the knife up to his wife's stomach, like he's gonna gut her, but he's talking like sexually with her, and it's like
Yeah,
that's creepy. Like, what the fuck?
that's
So
that's pretty messed up.
yeah, that, and then he's just a terrible person anyway. This is
It
like,
gave me feelings. Oh, sorry.
oh no, you can go.
Oh, well, it gave me feelings of like that one with the town where everyone just like became their innermost urges of
Yeah, except there's no
doing
magic in this
whatever they
one. This
wanted,
guy is
except
just
there's no
creepy.
magic. He is just that. He is just whatever he is feeling and whatever he wants to do. He just does it. He's just already complete. But like, I mean, that level of like ick
Yeah,
factor, horrific ick factors, like they were calling back to that, or at least with that, there was a reason behind it. There was, that technically wasn't those people. I mean, it was, but it was like them being released from all their inhibitions. But this is just like, oh, by the way, this guy is horrible and he does everything those people in that town do, but without any,
without
push. It's just
prompting.
him
Yeah, yeah,
being a horrible person.
without any magical spell or weird thing. He's just a terrible person in general.
I
So,
mean, whatever traumas he obviously went through as well because of the whole end creepy trip that Murphy put in his head. Whatever those
oh
deep
yeah,
seated things are, obviously there's some horrible shit there that I'm kind of glad they didn't go into because it lets you imagine, like, oh my god, what has he done?
I think you can
What's been done to
guess.
him, and what has he done?
Yeah, I think you can guess what is in his mind by what happens. Where there's like the sexy pig lady carcass, and then I don't know. In my mind, I'm like, so he really like puts the idea of like dead thing and sex together in his head.
I
So
thought it was more of like a combination of like women are pigs or women are
oh,
animals, and
yeah,
that's
it
where
could
the
be that
connection
too.
is.
That is, yeah, I mean, he literally says that a couple times where he's like,
Yeah,
they're just chattel for us to like do what we want with them. So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely there. But like, even if it is that, why is it a dead pig? Like, and
I
then,
think maybe he killed his mom.
oh, oh yeah, because he calls her mom, right?
Right.
So
So I
yeah,
think whatever situation he came from, he obviously thought his mom was a pig. Maybe she slept around, maybe she, did things that he thought were dirty or disgusting, even if they weren't in his brain, whatever his brain uh, was getting the information of things. There's obviously some weird contrast between what might have been actually happening and what actually happened. Or it could also be that he did just come from a horrible childhood as well. But either way, there's definitely a connection between he thinks women are animals, specifically pigs, and he probably murdered his mother and cut her open like he would like cut open a pig to take
yeah.
its insides out, would be my guess.
That is, I
From
never
the
thought of
images.
that. That is a good analyzation of that. I never picked up on the like, oh, he's talking about literally his mom. I thought he just had like mommy issues in general, but yeah, it makes sense that if he killed his mom and then that pig comes back as her in like weird fetish clothes and stuff.
Yeah, like that's probably how he saw her.
Yeah, but yeah, that one I always love the ending of that because he really gets his. Although I kind of wish it wasn't because at the end they pick the mom up in the van and they're like, "Oh, where's your dad?" Or Martin asks her, "Where's dad?" And she says, "Oh, the cops took him away because he was like I woke up and he was inside of a pig carcass crying or whatever." And I kind of wish it was real, like there was a pig monster that killed him and like tore him up or whatever. But I guess he didn't want to
I
do
mean, it
that.
was all in his head from Mercury. I would have been more satisfied if he had somehow just like either strangled himself on the pig's guts because he was climbing into it, or I just would have wished he'd been found dead instead of like mentally scrambled or whatever. Because then he's still alive. He's still, whatever kind of help they try to get him, or whatever, gets to potentially be redeemed, or at least live the rest of his life, even if he's like mentally scrambled or whatever. But I would have loved just sort of the finality of like, and then they found his body like halfway into a pig carcass, like
Yeah, because fuck
strangled in
that
the
guy, right?
entrails or something. Exactly. Like I would have preferred that personally.
Yeah, me too, I think. But I don't know why they pulled the punch. Maybe because, Martin would have been sad or something. So maybe they didn't want.
Would he though? His dad does like beat him and tried to pretend like he was, but possibly would have like actually like gutted him like a pig.
Well,
I
I
don't
think
even
the
think
weird
him.
thing
Forces him to
is,
meet all the time. I mean,
yeah, the weird thing is, though, I'm sure Martin, like a lot of children who have abusive families, when they're little or they're younger, they have that, like, they want the approval of that parent that's beating them and stuff. And they need it, like, they crave that. And so maybe he would be sad at first until he realizes and works through all that stuff when he's an adult. But he's only like 15 or something, right? So.
plus he did almost beat his dad to death, which Mercury stopped him from doing.
Oh, that's
So
true. Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that.
I think him actually learning that his dad was dead might have taken a weight off of him of like, I don't have to deal with him anymore, as opposed to now he's like, well, technically his dad's alive, so now he has to think about, oh, will I ever get redemption? Will I ever be able to talk to him and ask for like an apology or something when his
Yeah.
brain is all scrambled or whatever? But
Well, you know what? Now that you said that, Mercury's the one who did it to him, so maybe that's why she didn't have him kill himself or something, because just like she stopped Martin from killing him with the bone.
Oh, that's
it's like,
true.
oh, she just scrambled his brain, made him useless, and took away all the evil compulsions in him or whatever. So
Hopefully.
yeah,
Like hopefully he doesn't in his scrambled state try to like gut people. He thinks he sees pigs now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mercury wouldn't do that to him, leave him like that. But I mean, I don't
Hopefully
think he
she
comes back.
neutered his brain and then he's just like drooling in the corner muttering about pigs or something.
Yeah. That's what we. You know what? Sure, why not? That's what happened, because it doesn't ever come up again. So, at least that I've ever read. I have not read anything that references that. I don't think so. And then so after that story arc, which is one of the creepier, weirder storylines to me.
He does like to go like up to like highbrow sort of like fear machine, like, oh, this mental craziness, and then down to like, people getting slaughtered.
Yes.
And a guy who's obsessed with pigs and like slaughtering pigs and meat and things, and then back up to, oh, by the way, John had a twin in utero and killed him.
Yes. Yeah. So like, we go from this story, which is really easy to wrap your head around, and maybe that's why you did it, to one of the most like hard to describe and read and understand stories. Like, I have gotten people, that listen to this on Patreon be like, wait, what happened? Like, and I don't know if it's me or like my description of it, or if it's actually, just the material itself. I think it's the material itself, although I'm sure I didn't describe everything 100% perfect, but it was really hard to do these last two issues because, one, they bring back the whole everybody, and you have to kind of like say where everybody is and like in their mind and in their mental place and everything. And then like why everybody's hanging out, like Errol and Zed and everything. And then the whole, all the tarot stuff is very like, what, like, I don't quite understand all of this these magical things. And then one thing I did like is the vision that John has at the end of the first book, which is issue 39, where he sees that cave after eating a bunch of mushrooms, and then he like goes into it, and it's like the giant female cave, so he's literally like walking into a womb, and yeah, I don't know, I liked the imagery of that stuff, but then the next issue was like, what, like, because you think, oh, I'm gonna like go on some journey with John, but then they just cut to, once the issue 40 starts, this future world where John is the golden boy Magus, not the one we've been following, and like all his friends are alive, and it's this weird future world. It's still the post-apocalyptic world, like climate change happened, or the world was destroyed by climate change, but he was able to survive with all his friends because he's such a powerful Magus. And just like all of that stuff was really hard to explain, like why people are alive or who was talking. I got to remind everybody oh yeah, that's the person from this issue, or that's the person from this issue. So there was a lot of that kind of stuff. And then also the weird, trippy thing that happens when they go into like where the Magus goes into the weird dimension with our John, and he like they talk it out, and then they're like, oh, okay, we're bros now. Like let's fuse back into one. They do like what's it like a fusion dance, and then
Yeah,
like Dragon
fusion
Ball.
from Dragon Ball.
Yeah. And then they like they fuse, and then now John is whole again. So I think
now they're John.
Yeah, yes, I think the concept is there, right? Like it's a cool concept, but this is one of those things I'm like just goes over my head. Like I think the execution isn't quite pulled off like a lot of Jamie Delano's stuff, but I like it. I like the idea of it. It's just a lot of you just have to really understand like magical processes, I think, to get it. So it seems like, oh yeah, totally. It's like if someone's talking to you about circuit boards and you don't know anything about it, all this like lingo and technical words and stuff are going over your head because you don't understand what those mean. So whenever they're talking about tarot or these
ley lines,
ley lines, magical stuff you might not have the vocabulary for, it's like, okay, I mean, I'm able to pick up some of it, but like a lot of it is going over my head. And that's why I was like, go to Google if you have questions about this shit, because I don't know anything about this magic stuff. But yeah, like I think it is a weird ending to this run. Like it's definitely, it definitely explains why John has so much bad shit happens to him. Like that he wasn't a complete person because he strangled the good version of him in the womb. But one thing I like is that the good version of him in that dystopian future where it's the golden boy Magus is alive, he still feels like he's being haunted by the brother he killed. So both are equally haunted. They just have massively different lives or like outcomes of his life choices, I guess. As opposed to just like, oh, everything's perfect for this one and everything's shit for the Arjon. It's like, yeah, that's it, but it's also a little bit more complex than that. So what do you think about all this stuff? Did you follow it? Did you get it? Do you think you grasp it?
I thought going into it that the future we were being shown was because John was on mushrooms. He was having sort of like a similar trip to what Mercury did because she's already opened that door before. But because of the mushrooms, he was seeing a future that could have been like, what if I had actually been the golden son that had lived instead of my shitty self? This is the future I could have had. So I thought it was literally John, like feeling the way he did with Mercury's future vision, a different future vision of what could have been, because he was already like seeing the golden boy ghost or vision of that, whatever that was. So I thought with that plus the mushrooms, he was kind of imagining, oh, if only I could have, like, he would basically imagine a world where everything he did worked or the best possible outcome happened. So yes, he saves what's her name from
Astra.
the demon back in the beginning, Astra. Yes, like, so he managed to sacrifice part of himself instead of losing her. He saved Gary Lester. He saved Benjamin. Everybody loves and adores him and essentially views him as their savior. He is the Magus. So to me, I took it as this is John's ultimate realization of who he could have been. Until the other John came in. And then I was like, wait. So wait, he wasn't this version of himself. This is in fact a separate version of himself, like an alternate reality timeline, not just a mushroom trip thing he was having in his head. Because the other John talks to him like our John is like, hey, dude, I've been like haunting you this whole time or something, which just seemed really weird. So I really thought that I had it in the beginning, that I was like, oh, this is so cool. We're getting like a weird mushroom trip alternate potential future that he could have had. But yeah, as soon as it started getting into the fact that these were two separate Johns, like they were actually saying, hey, these are two separate Johns who are both kind of tripping, meeting each other, and then combining into the one person they should have been, which again doesn't make sense because if they were twins, they would have been two separate people. They would have been good twin and bad twin. or something. So
Well, I think the
twin,
idea
evil
is,
twin.
and I might be wrong on this, but the idea was there wasn't supposed to be twins, and because there was, like, it was either like a happenstance that, something that wasn't meant to happen, and this perfect. He's supposed to be both of them, right? Like, so each one feels the loss of the other, or like the separation, because there wasn't supposed to be another one, and then and then because of that, each one is jealous, in depending on which reality, and that's why they kill them in the womb. It's like, oh, this one's ugly and I'm gonna kill it, or this one's perfect and I'm gonna kill it, and so, which is weird because it's also like this baby is conscious inside of the mom, so or these babies are, but even without that, like, I get the idea that he's going for, which is it's always supposed to have been one child, but unfortunately, whatever happened that made it, split and become two beings that were like, and this is kind of like twins. I think like John is the shit.
That's what I was thinking too.
John is the shit, and
twins.
the Golden Boy is
Danny
the Arnold.
DeVito and Arnold.
Yeah, and then or like the Simpsons with Hugo, who lives in the basement. And it's like, wait a second. Yeah, wait a second. Hugo, the good one, was the one on the left side, and then it's like, Bart's the bad one. Yeah.
Are you surprised?
yeah, right. So I like the idea. Once again, I think the concept is there. It just, maybe it's because I'm not magically inclined or whatever. I don't know what these rules are or why. Maybe that's something common, like, the lore of certain people, maguses or whatever. Maybe this is like a thing that happens or can happen, but I don't know. So it just makes it seem like, yeah, this is totally normal. This happens all the time, future, or like, yeah,
I'm not really magically inclined either. Yeah. So I have no idea on that front.
But I did like, how they, at the end, they have that conversation and then they become one, which was always supposed to be, at least this is my interpretation, which was always supposed to be the outcome originally, but somehow fate or whatever stepped in and made two beings and created John's shitty life. So, and I think like the idea is like, oh, if John had that good side of him, inside of him as well, he would have not fucked up when he was younger and had the whole thing with Astra. Even though it's our John, he still would have been good, right? So, or he would have had that like all-powerful Magus feel about him, and he would probably had a good relationship with his dad and, stuff like that. So, like his dad, even though his dad was like sad that the mom died, he wouldn't have looked at him as a baby in the, infant area and been like, ugh, get that fucking thing away from me. There would have been like the little golden hue, and he'd be like, oh, well, at least she died bringing this bundle into the world or whatever. It
would have been normal, right? It would have been like a perfect baby that they're even like, this baby's so perfect, it's scaring me. Or like, oh, this baby's so ugly, it's scaring me. It would have been like, it's a normal kid. And
looks cute.
He would have had a better relationship with his father.
Yeah. So I like what he tried to do. I don't think he fully pulled it off, at least for me. And I think other people have a hard time understanding exactly what's going on in this as well. But it does, on a reread, you get to pick up a lot of things, like you're like, oh, I didn't pick up on that. I didn't pick up on that. Like, that's a cool idea. You can kind of like mull it around because it is so like tied to this system of magic that I don't understand everything, all the rules of, I guess. But yeah, the only thing I don't like about this issue is the ending, when like all his friends are looking for him after he, bonds with his twin and, comes back to our reality, and his, Errol and Marge and everybody are looking for him with Zed, and they find the card on the ground, the tarot card, and then they find like the rock that looks like a gravestone, and it's like, John Constantine was here, he was great or whatever. And then like he just disappeared. It's kind of like the end of Fear Machine, actually, now that I think about it, where like
it is kind of his MO to just disappear and just be like, who knows what happened to me, bye.
Yeah,
maybe I'll see you again.
I'm so mysterious. Yeah, and I was such a weird, I don't know why he ended it like that. He could have had like, well, guys, I got to go find me own way. Like, Like, I appreciate
Well, that is
everything.
essentially what he said, just without him actually saying it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, they're friends. They've known each other for a long time. So, um, you would think
Maybe
that
he
they
just
would.
likes to do it to like Mercury and Marge because he did
Yeah.
to them
Well, he
the
told
first time.
Marge like, this ain't gonna happen. Like, we're not gonna be a thing. So,
Yeah.
um, he definitely did not let her down easy in the first or in issue 39 of this little arc. So, um,
Yeah, that was kind of a dick move to be like, it's not going to happen. By the way, where's Zed? Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah, for real, right?
that was a bit harsh. That was a bit harsh.
Yeah, I'm surprised John doesn't have more lady issues with him being like, so yeah, thanks for the couple nights ago when I manipulated you into sex. Anyway, where's Zed? I'm kind of horny again. Like,
I am kind of seeing a pattern.
yeah, right. Yeah. So that's the end of the Jamie Delano run. So, what did you think of the run as a whole?
It starts with where did it start again?
I mean, I'm talking about the whole run, like from
Yeah,
issue
that's what I
one.
mean. Like, where was the
Oh,
beginning?
it starts with Gary Lester being
Oh, that
possessed by
was
the
the
Hunger
whole
Demon.
run.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was the whole run. I forgot that he was the one from the very beginning.
Yes.
It goes through a lot, man.
Is this the longest thing you've read other than Sandman?
It might. Well, I mean, I've also read like Invincible and
Oh, you've read all of
um.
Invincible?
Well, I've gotten up to that and Walking Dead. I've not read all of them. I've read up to I forget how many issues, not issues. Sorry, trades. I'm up to like I think I got up to like Negan in
Oh,
Walking
okay. So
Dead.
yeah, you're this is
You
this
know,
isn't the longest thing, but it's one of the longer ones you've read.
yeah. I mean, I usually for some reason or another I end up getting cut off from a series. Either I just can't keep up with collecting the trades, or I just fall away or forget about it for some reason. But yeah, sticking with this, I mean, aside from Swamp Thing, because again, that's another thing I've never actually gone through by myself. Um, yeah, this was a huge chunk of going from the beginning of a character to sort of the end question mark of a character. Because,
Right.
whatever happens beyond this, obviously, this is the entirety of this version of John, who's been half a person this whole
This
time.
whole time.
The whole time.
Yeah, I think for me, I love this run. It's definitely questionable whether you need to read the whole thing if you just want to get like the greatest hits stuff. So like usually when people say where should I start with John Constantine, I'm always like, well, you can read the first 12 issues of Hellblazer, and then you can jump to issue 41 with Garth Ennis, which is like considered the best run of the series or one of the best. And it's also like a lot of the inspiration for the movie. So I usually just tell people that so that you get like you get a good feel for how Jamie wrote him in the first 12 issues, and you get all the backstory that you need. And then, you jump to Garth Ennis, who kind of takes the character and runs. So like, and it makes sense. One thing I do like is because Jamie Delano did this and set up, okay, John is a more complete person now. He's like like you said, he's kind of what he should have been. He's both sides. He's like the weak side and the strong side. So he's got a little bit more cockiness in the Garth Ennis run, which sets up nicely from this, right? Because it would make sense that his personality kind of changes after these two issues. Because yeah, I feel like there is a change where John gets a lot more like a little bit more cocky and
Magus energy.
yeah, Magus energy, big time Magus energy. I feel he goes out of his way to really fuck with hell. I mean, he's always done that, but like there's like a particular swagger he's got after this run, and I think it makes sense. It really does set up. Even though like he's still going through like horrible things in his life, he is able to handle them way better than he did before, I think. So yeah, I think this run as a whole is pretty strong, even though if you just want to read like the good parts of Hellblazer, I never really recommend to read Fear Machine. I always recommend the Family Man story arc. I think that's really good.
Yes, I was gonna say that one to me is important because it has more personal history, like what you learn in the very beginning of the run. So yeah, if you want to skip over Fear Machine, fine.
Yeah,
But Family Man, I would say, is would also be up there.
yeah, and then also you get the good,
Sections I would have to
Neil
go through.
Gaiman part, the
Hmm.
Neil Gaiman story and stuff. So, and you get the cool dog story. So,
Yes.
um, but yeah, so I like this run. I think it is very interesting for the ideas that he throws out. Um, but like I said, he doesn't always like land those ideas. But I appreciate what he's trying to do in it. And also like how dark Jamie Delano gets. There are some
Yeah.
fucked up issues in this run. I feel like I've read other issues that get pretty dark, but considering like the 90s is known for like being super fucked up and like extreme and all that shit, like this stuff to me is way more fucked up than any of that shit. Um, for the most part, I can't really think of anything that's more adult or challenging with concepts and stuff than this run for the time period. And especially since at first this was just a DC book. This was not a Vertigo book until 1993. So there was 5 years of Jamie Delano's run. Actually, I think what is it, 12 issues. So he only wrote it for just under 4 years. So um that being said, like he was barely in the 90s and he's writing all this under the main DC logo. And I don't even know how he did that. Like, there's some really fucked up shit in this run, and I'm
Yeah,
surprised they let
it's
him do it.
stuff you wouldn't. I mean, especially if it's just going to be like an on the stand comic
And it was,
that you could just pick up and just like, oh, this looks cool. There's a bunch of cute statues running around and they look like giant babies. I wonder what that's about.
yes. What could this
My
be?
nephew likes to read comics. He might like
He's
this.
6. Yeah, yeah. It would not be a good thing to pick that up randomly. Although I think because it's just called Hellblazer, no one knows what that is. So like newsstands aren't buying Hellblazer and putting it on there. They could, but they're sticking with Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, whatever.
True.
So I don't think 7-Eleven was carrying too many issues of Hellblazer, but at the same time, it still was supposed to be under the code and all that stuff. So it's still surprising that this got away. Like they let him do it. I think because Alan Moore had already gotten away with a lot with his Swamp Thing run, so they're like, okay, these books we're just gonna like let them do what they want because they're selling well and it's cool. But so what did you think of Jamie, or what do you think of Jamie Delano as a writer and a storyteller after reading this whole run?
I really like where his mind goes. And I mean that as both like from the horrific side to the just like crazy whacked out ideas that were presented throughout the run. Like I was always surprised. I was, never disappointed really. I mean, Fair Machine is long, but it's not really disappointing. It still kind of gives you a complete story. As weird as it is, and as long as it is, it's still a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I really enjoyed like all the stories that he came up with. And then, there are the individual issues as well thrown in there that the guest writers wrote or maybe, expanded on his concepts, like with the dog one.
Yeah.
But I would love to see other things that he's written because I really enjoyed like just the whole thing.
Yeah, I know that so every now and then I'll see like a random one shot that he wrote for DC back like in the 90s, and I always pick those up because they're always fucked up. And they're always like really
Nice.
freaky and weird. They're always for Vertigo at that time. So he's always good for like a, wow, that was a messed up story.
He needs to write horror stories, man.
I think
Where are his
he
horror
does write
novels?
books. I think he writes more magical stuff though. I might be wrong, but I know he does
Oh,
write books now too. So
I have to look him up.
yeah, look him up. But at the same time, like, would you recommend this run to someone getting into Hellblazer?
Oh, totally. I
Okay.
I mean, I would agree. Start with the first 12 because that sets the stage. And if it's pressed for time, and like you said, the jump from that to Garth Ennis, if most people know him from the movie, which is also how I knew him, and sort of like a mini quick history, and then jumping straight to Garth Ennis, which has the connections to the movie, like you said, sounds like a perfectly plausible way to do it. And then if they really get into the character, to then backtrack to after, like from issue 13 to 40, to go through it that way.
Yeah.
It's sort of like when you suggest a TV show and you're like, oh, okay, well, watch this, watch maybe like the first 3 episodes, but then jump to episode 15, and then you really get like the meat and potatoes of like what the series offers, and then go back and rewatch like the rest of them up to that, just to get people like hooked first.
Right.
I think it works out like great like that.
Yeah, that's basically what I did with this. Like, I read the first trade, I think, and then I had read like even later stuff. I read like the Brian Azzarello stuff, which is in the 140s. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I want to know more about this. So let me go back and like start reading Fear Machine. And then I liked the character enough that I could get through Fear Machine without it like bogging me down.
That's what you want, is you want
Yeah.
them to like him enough to get through the ones that you're like,
Yeah. But to be fair, it's only 9
long.
issues out of 40. So, and not all of them are bad or anything. It's just a long story. So, yeah, well, I'm glad like now you are aware of Jamie Delano. And if you see that name on other stuff, like I know he's written, I think he wrote Animal Man for a little bit. Is it Animal Man?
Oh,
I don't know.
nice.
He wrote another Vertigo series after this for a while. And I was like, ooh, I need to pick that up because I want to see his take on some of those things. Yeah, like I love that. Like you could get into him and you know who he is now. And if you saw his name on a comic, you might just pick it up just because it's him.
I probably would, just because I'm like, oh, okay, this has his name on it. That means it's got to be good.
Yeah.
Or weird.
Or
good,
at least weird, yeah.
perfect,
it might
something.
open your mind a little bit, like it might not be your favorite thing, but
it could end up being more like, the weird part as opposed to the scary part or the gross out part. But either way, it's going to be a good story.
Yeah, it's going to change your perspective of the world either way. So, but yeah, well, it's super awesome that we got this far, and now we get to start on the Garth Ennis run, which is one of my favorite runs of all time of all comics. So, very excited about that. Is there any other stuff that I missed or anything you want to go over?
I am excited to see where all the best parts of the movie come from.
Yes.
What the inspiration was for those. But actually, I do want to ask you, like I asked you before, did you have a favorite cover this time?
Oh, I have 2 favorite covers from this little 8-issue run that finished up this whole Jamie Delano run, which is I love the dog issue, which is issue 32, just because it's so like all the other issue covers are just esoteric, and there's words written in hieroglyphics in the background, and it's like it gives
Subtle.
you it gives you an emotion or like a feeling, but it doesn't really tell you what's in it. The dog one is just a dog biting a John's head, I think, or just a person's head, and it's like, got it.
Yeah,
but it's like
I liked the straightforward weirdness of that.
Yeah,
and creepy factor,
and the dog is like distorted, like it's a creepy, weird looking dog, so that works. And then
there's going to be some sort of killer dog in the story.
Yes, for sure.
Very straightforward.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. One cover out of 40 that tells you what's in the fucking episode or the issue. So, but then I really also like the mirrored issue, which is issue 39. That cover being like on top, it says Hellblazer, and then halfway down it mirrors itself on the bottom, so it says Hellblazer again, but it's all upside down and everything. I liked that a lot. And I think that if that actually, like, once again, it tells the story of the cover if you know the story. But if you don't, you're like, what the fuck kind of cover is this?
Weird, it's trippy, and it's very unusual, and enough for you to go like, what the fuck? And then want to pick it up to find out what the hell is going on here.
Exactly. So I enjoy those 2 covers. Did you have one that you liked the most?
The dog one for sure. I have to say, just again, because it is straightforward and gives you that feeling of like monster, which I do love anything with monsters in it. So monster dog, I was like, cool. Is it like a werewolf dog? Is it just like an enormous dog? Obviously it's gonna most likely eat people because there's a head in its mouth. I'm down for that crazy dog story of some kind.
Yeah, it's like Cujo.
So I liked that. My second favorite, and it would be first if I didn't like the dog one so much, would be David Keene's with the 4 heads on it.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, yeah, David Keene did the art in that too.
I mean, normally I would automatically put him first just because I love his art so much, but the dog wins me over stronger than just his name can. So
Right.
I did love that cover too, just because it looked so like each face was specific and different and just slightly off and weird. I really liked how it almost looked like a puzzle. I
Hmm.
love puzzles and just kind of showing different facets. I think of it's supposed to be. I think it's all supposed to be John, as if it's different versions of him, which also ties into the story too. So I
Right.
thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I like that one too, but I just, the mirror one trips me out every time I look at it. So I enjoy that. But yeah, so we will do another one of these once we get into the Garth Ennis run and probably finish the first arc and then whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't remember how many, like, if there's one shots in between or that kind of stuff in between the arcs, or if there's like 2-issue story arcs or something, but we'll figure it out as we go. But definitely at least the first arc, which is the first 6 issues, and maybe a couple of the issues after that, if there's no like big arc that immediately follows. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah, so that'll be fun. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy. And as always, if you want to sign up for our Patreon and get all of the Garth Ennis run, because I'm 2 issues away from it ending as of today in Patreon. So if you want to skip ahead and don't want to listen to the free version, you can go on patreon.com /planes, trains, and comic books, or wait, / planes, trains, and comic books, all one word, and sign up there on the Hellblazer tier and get the entire library I have, which includes, like I said, all of this run and all of the Garth Ennis run. And yeah, anything else? Any last words, Hoku?
Plus the extras that Patreon members also get.
Oh, that's
The extra
true.
episodes.
Yes, we get like, yeah,
I like those.
we do
Those are fun.
the special ones just for our Patreon members, an extra main podcast every month. So if you have any interest in that, once again, it's patreon.com /planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And with that, we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.